So I just saw the midnight premiere of the final film in the Skywalker saga, and I'm recording this right after seeing it. This will just be my thoughts on the film, what I liked, what I didn't like, and just my overall view of this movie and the trilogy. There will be major spoilers for the movie in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, proceed with caution. I had very low expectations going into this film, and I went in expecting to hate it, especially after rewatching The Last Jedi hours before seeing this, and rewatching episode 8 made me realize how awful the second film in this trilogy was. So because of those low expectations, I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. That's not to say it's amazing, because it's not, but it definitely had its moments. But honestly, me saying it's not as bad as I thought it would be isn't saying much, because I was expecting another episode 8. Before going in, I did not watch any of the trailers. I avoided them as best I could. I didn't read or watch any reviews on the film, because I wanted to go in knowing nothing. The only thing I actually knew was that Sidious was returning, and before going, I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score just because I was curious. And I was very surprised to see it had an 89% fan score, which is of course drastically different from the 43% of The Last Jedi, and it even topped the 85% The Force Awakens had. Star Wars fans are probably the most brutal fans of any franchise, and they look for problems rather than looking for the good. And I myself went into this movie doing the same thing, looking for problems. And I did find a lot of problems, but overall, I liked more parts than I disliked. Throughout the film, you get the feeling that this is just J.J. Abrams who directed this and The Force Awakens versus Rian Johnson who directed The Last Jedi. The biggest example being Luke saying to Rey not to throw her lightsaber, as that was no way to treat it. A clear FU to Johnson, who had Luke throw his lightsaber in one of the first scenes of episode 8, completely undoing what Abrams did at the end of The Force Awakens. Abrams clearly hated what Johnson did, because he left out so much from The Last Jedi. Some things that he cut out made the trilogy better, but others left giant plot holes. The biggest plot hole was Rey being the final Jedi who embodied many thousands of years of Jedi generations. Meanwhile, we saw this kid at the end of The Last Jedi who is Force sensitive, and it's never touched upon in this movie. Ignoring The Last Jedi, as much as we all want to, it makes it so when you look at the trilogy, there are many plot holes. Some things that Abrams changed from The Last Jedi that were actually good and improved the trilogy was hardly utilizing Rose, whose character I absolutely hate from the last movie, especially her and Finn's relationship. I thought it was hilarious that when they were leaving, Finn had the chance to kiss her, but instead he pats her on the shoulder. Abrams did a good job making us feel as though the three main heroes, Finn, Poe, and Rey, were actually friends, though the dialogue wasn't the best, and it seemed as though every line was just a setup for the next line, and it just felt unnatural. I feel the beginning of the movie was rushed beyond belief. It felt so forced, and honestly just like a giant mess. And watching the first 30 minutes of the movie, I was thinking to myself, damn, this movie's gonna suck. But as it progressed, I think it got a whole lot better. I think the beginning part of the film struggled because there was a lot of setup, as Abrams shifted away from Johnson's vision and tried to pull away from the story of The Last Jedi, almost like damage control, which led to a very messy opening. Though a big part of this was also giving Leia a good send-off after the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher. I think having Han and Lando return to help Leia finish what her character was always meant to do in this trilogy was great, to turn her son back to the good side, and to lead the resistance. And I love how Han and Ben's reunion is word for word from the scene when Ben killed him, but this time it plays out how it would have had he not embraced the dark side. I thought that was a really nice touch. I feel as though this was the biggest fan service Star Wars film, and a lot of this was hit or miss for me. Adding the Death Star was a bit much and sort of unnecessary, and moreover was kind of impossible because that thing blew the heck up from the inside. I doubt that there would be pieces that big just chilling on a planet. The moment in the final fight when Lando arrives with a gigantic fleet of just random people across the galaxy should have been a great moment, a lot like the scene in Endgame where all of the characters come together. But here, I just did not feel the emotion the way I did for Marvel. This film constantly mistakes spectacle for emotion, and the fan service scenes are the biggest example of this, mainly because a lot of them lack the emotion I was hoping they would have, and instead of having real and deep character moments, they just have amazing visuals. And that's not what you want from a film that's so driven by character development. That's literally what this whole trilogy is about. Characters' journeys moving forward and changing. That should be the #1 priority, not these amazing shots that have no emotion because we're not invested in it. Some fan service scenes that I did like was seeing Endor and Cloud City after the Resistance won, and I absolutely love how the film ended where the saga began on Tatooine, especially with the final shot of the twin suns. And now, we've seen this shot in each of the 3 trilogies, which is very fitting. The strongest part of this film was finishing Ben Solo, or Kylo Ren, Rey, Luke, and Leia's character arcs. Ben Solo has always been my favorite part of these films. His arc is so interesting, and I think it's one of the few things that The Last Jedi did well, though I wish they didn't drag Luke's character through the mud to do it. But having Ben destroy Luke's Jedi Academy was the perfect start to his dark side journey, and here, in The Rise of Skywalker, we see his character's end intertwine with Rey's. Rey's parentage has been up in the air since the first scene we saw her in, and here we finally got the answer to that. And though it might be far-fetched that she's the granddaughter of the Emperor, if you put that aside, it's a very interesting reveal. But I have to say, bringing the Emperor back was lazy writing, and this is another example of fan service that I wasn't much a fan of. It reminds me of Spider-Man 3 when they answered the fans and added Venom, but it ended up biting them in the ass. And having the Emperor isn't as bad as that, but I feel as though it was fan service that was unnecessary. But at the same time, Abrams was kinda screwed after Johnson killed Snoke, so he had to do something. Rey getting the white lightsaber at the end was the perfect ending to her arc, because she's neither good nor bad, she's in the middle, which is exactly what these lightsabers represent, the middle path. Though I'm not sure that I like that Rey claimed to be a Skywalker. I feel that was a bit too much, especially because this series is the Skywalker saga, and making Rey a Skywalker is sort of diminishing what the Skywalker legacy represents. I would have rather seen Ben be the Skywalker that rises, because his arc ends in him embracing his mom's side of the family, and he gives up his dark persona, Kylo Ren. Han said it best, Kylo Ren is dead, and Ben Solo, or Ben Skywalker, is alive. Had they made Ben be the Skywalker, and the only Skywalker the title was talking about, I think it would have had much more of an impact. As I said, it was a bit far-fetched to have the Emperor come back, and at first, I did not like the fact that Palpatine had kids, because I just can't see him having sex. It was almost like Voldemort and Bellatrix having a kid in The Cursed Child, but the more I thought about it for Palpatine, the less it bothered me. He was a huge and powerful public figure. Women probably threw themselves at him, so I guess I can forgive that, but the Emperor having sex still kinda leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Another thing that I felt was sort of unnatural was the kiss between Ben and Rey. I know that they had a lot of chemistry and their emotions were running very high, but I feel as though they just threw it in there to have a sort of Romeo and Juliet type love story, but with their own Star Wars twist. The fact that Ben's character arc ended with him saving Rey was really good though. That I really liked, and I'm happy that that's how his character finished his journey. I was worried they were gonna mess up my favorite character in this trilogy, but they actually gave him a very fitting ending. Seeing Luke and Leia's arc come to an end, with Rey burying their lightsabers on Tatooine, was a really nice touch, and I like the whole Leia lightsaber thing. I think this film redeemed Luke's character after he was ruined in episode 8. A lot of his arc was damage control, but I think they gave him a solid ending, especially when he stood next to his sister, both of them being one with the Force. Also, hearing all of the Jedi's voices talking to Rey was amazing. Hearing Hayden Christensen, Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson, Frank Oz, and a few others come back to voice their characters was amazing. And though we didn't see them, it sort of ended their journey as well, seeing that even if they're all gone, they all moved on through the Force. Chewbacca also got a really nice ending to his character, getting the medal he was not awarded in the first movie. Another very nice touch, and a piece of fan service that I actually really enjoyed. So as I said, the main characters were the best part of this movie for me, and that is what made the movie be better than I thought it would be. But looking beyond the characters, this film has a lot of problems. I don't like all these new Force powers, especially the healing ability, which was not only shown in this movie, but in The Mandalorian as well, Baby Yoda healing a bad wound. This was something that Darth Plagueis could do, and I like the fact that not even Palpatine could do it, despite the fact that this is what he lied about to Anakin to get him to turn to the dark side.
To cheat death is a power only one has achieved. But if we work together, I know we can discover the secret.
To have Rey, Ben, Baby Yoda just do it, I don't really like that, because Palpatine and Anakin spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. And I've said this word about this movie many times, it's far-fetched. One thing that really bothered me in this film was the fact that they never told us what Finn wanted to tell Rey, because they brought it up twice in the film and just never answered it. And unless I'm missing something, and if I am, tell me in the comments, I want to know. I just don't know how they could wrap this film up and not answer that question. I also thought that it was again far-fetched that every single ship in the Last Order fleet had a cannon that could destroy planets, so if just one of them fired on the Resistance, despite them having so many people, the fight would have been over. But instead they just sit there and they let the Resistance destroy their cannons without even putting up a fight. Overall, this movie was better than I thought it would be, and it was a good wrap up to a sort of pointless trilogy. Did we need the trilogy? No. Am I happy they made it? If you asked me before seeing The Rise of Skywalker, I would have said no, but after seeing episode 9, I'd say yes. I think Abrams was able to pull everything together and give us a good wrap up to a sort of crappy trilogy. And as a Star Wars fan, I'm delighted that it went beyond my expectations, even if they were very, very low. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life and see more of this little dude. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook for Movie Flame updates. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be featured in the next video, plus get a bunch of other rewards, become a patron today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great videos on the way.